Welcome to L07 Talk. Today I'm going to be talking with Sally Brownbill, networking consultant and creator of the Brownbill Effect. She is a massively talented woman who has spent many years helping people connect and shape their portfolio throughout the creative industry. Good morning, Sally.
Hi, how are you, Adam?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
My pleasure.
Let's start with our first question. Can you explain what the Brownbill Effect is?
Yeah, sure, Adam. Thanks. Okay, so the Brownbill Effect has been created over a long period of time. I've been in the industry for about 25 years, and it's a culmination of 25 years of me building a massive network. And it sort of split into 4 sections. So I have the creative directory, and the creative directory is set up for people that have their own freelance businesses or companies, and they could be from design, photography, illustration, special effects, retouches, galleries, bookbinders, all sorts of companies that want to have another platform to help market themselves. And the creative directory is there, and it's also a creative hub. So it also enables them to become part of a community where I help to promote them through newsletters, through social media, through talking to each other, and also to the greater industry. I also have the assistant register, which is set up for current students and recent graduates, predominantly in photography and production, so that photographers, filmmakers, videographers, producers can come to that website and work with young people or recent graduates to help them assist on their campaigns and their jobs. And then I help people find full-time jobs, and that can be across design, photography, marketing, communications, advertising, and sometimes they're full-time jobs that are, 5 days a week. Since COVID, we're looking at a lot of jobs that are working, 2 days in the office, 3 days from home. Also, I help with placing maternity leave positions as well across that. A lot of people go on long-term holidays, and there's also another freelancing section in there as well, which is wonderful. And finally, I have my area, which is about helping people with their careers. So it's a career consultation part of the Brownbill Effect. And I'm working with people at all stages of their career, from current students and recent graduates right through to people that have been working in the industry for many, many years. And we talk about everything from what their website looks like, how to present themselves, their portfolio, what opportunities are out there, what options they can have, help them put their CVs together. Many people come to me for career changes as well. So they might have been in a whole career and at 30 or 40 or 50 decide that they actually want to be a creative, and how does that work? I'm connected to lots of universities, and I do a lot of work within the university system. So I have a really good understanding of a variety of courses from a really large bank of different outlets in which to study. And those consultations are a really important part of my business, because they're getting down to the ground roots of helping people, which is the core of what the Brownbill Effect is about.
It sounds like a very beneficial project. It really helps out a lot of people. How did that all get started?
It all got started because initially with the portfolio and helping people side of things, I was working in a design studio, and photographers would come in and show their portfolios, and they weren't very well presented. They weren't well laid out. I also had been an agent for photographers prior to that, and I knew that photographers felt it was very hard to be critical of their own work. And so one photographer said to me, "Will you help me pull a folio together?" So that was way back in the 2002. And so I redesigned his portfolio, and then he told a number of people who kept coming to me that then moved into designers and illustrators and all sorts of other creatives, as well as photographers, would come to me for my second set of eyes and ears. And then I kind of realized that I was really good at it, and that I loved talking and helping people. And because of my education and teaching side of things, I was working a lot with people that were coming out of university as well. And then as that journey went along, people would ring me and go, "Hey, we're shooting in Sydney. Do you know a studio? Or we need a copywriter, or do you know a good team?" And I go, "Yeah, these people, this would be great. This would be great." And one day my husband just said to me, "Do you get paid for any of this?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm just putting people in touch." And we both sat and thought, gosh, I think there's probably a business in this. So in 2012, I got together a team of people to talk to about, is there actually a business in it? And they were senior creatives in the industry, and they went, "Yeah, there is." And so in early 2013, I launched the creative directory to start with, and then the assistant register came on board. And as that was all bubbling away, I was still doing all of my consulting. And then a designer one day rang me and he goes, "I'll pay you to find me somebody to work in my studio full time, because you know loads of people, and I know you like people, and I think you'll find me someone really good." And I did. And then he told somebody, and the girl that I put in there told somebody, and then it all sort of got known that I was starting to find full-time jobs. And so, Adam, that's really how it came about. It was a want from industry, wanting somebody like me to do that.
There's always good connections to be made there. Really good that someone like you was able to help people as you do.
Yeah, and I think it's also, Adam, about reading between the lines and also listening to what people want. And the industry really needed that. They knew that I was a creative. They knew that I'd come up through working in design studios and managing photographers and being a photographer myself. And I wasn't just somebody that had come in from another left of field that didn't really know the industry. I knew it inside out. And I think they feel very comfortable with working with someone like that because they don't have to sort of explain how the industry works. I get it.
Well, speaking of the people in the industry, who would you consider the three most influential people to you? How have they impacted you?
Well, the first one would be a guy called Rick Wallace, who recently passed away, but he was my mentor. And I first met him when I had just graduated from RMIT. In fact, I've just written a book. And I've dedicated this book to Rick. It's actually quite a beautiful story. At our wedding many years ago, Rick photographed it. And my dad said all of Sally's life, she wanted to be a photographer. So she went to RMIT and learnt about photography. And then she started working with Rick, where she learnt a little bit more about photography and a lot about life. And that was so true. Like, he taught me the business of photography. He taught me how to I always had a great energy, but he taught me how important a great energy was and to surround yourself with people with good energy. He taught me, a lot of life lessons as well. And he was the one that said to me, before you really get stuck into your career, go traveling, and you see the world and experience new things. And I think that was a hugely important part to my growth as a person. And also as a creative as well, because I got to do so many different jobs when I was overseas. I mostly worked in film and television and theatre. And I learnt a lot, which I brought back, and coupled with my photography and then going into teaching, it all made me a much more rounded person. So Rick Wallace was certainly a great influence. There was also an old lecturer of mine called Gus Vanderheide, and he had taught us photography, but he was a graphic designer. And he had a big influence on me. He was the one that got me involved in teaching and taught me about a subject that he was running and taught me how to work with students and how to run a class and trained me. And when he retired, I took over his class. So I think, I owe a great deal to Gus. And I was thinking who my third person was. I think there's so many people that come in and out of my life that do influence me, but somebody that's not part of the creative industry is my husband. And he's in horticulture, but he has influenced me a lot. My husband has taught me a lot about being very grounded, being very earthed, being very calm, being rational, all of those things that naturally I'm not. And often, I'll go, blah, and Martin will say, okay, so let's just think about this and calm down. So I think that he's been a really good positive influence, not just on my life, but in my career as well, because he's great to talk things over from a very completely separate point of view, but a very clear-headed man.
Well, that's good to hear. Sounds like you have some very inspirational people in your life who's helped you a lot.
Absolutely. There's probably 100 of them, but I had to pick three, and I was thinking, they'll be the top of the pops today.
Yeah. So what made you move out of photography into helping people organize their portfolios and form connections?
Well, I realised I had this epiphany after many years of working in film and television, and after working and studying photography and working in design, I just had this moment where I just thought, my photography is not about shooting other people's ideas. And that's what I trained as, was an advertising photographer. And I was starting to shoot again, and I just thought, I actually don't want to be doing this. If I'd had my time again, I probably would have been a documentary photographer. And so it was at that point I went to see Gus, who was my old lecturer, and say to him, I actually don't know what to do. And he said, well, why don't you do a guest talk and talk about what you've been doing traveling, and then we'll have a chat about teaching. And it was during that time that I really realized that I love teaching. And then another photographer had come to me and he said, I will pay you money to go and take my folio around and get me work. And I thought, well, that's easy because I know photography inside out. part of what I was doing at RMIT was going into the industry to get live briefs from advertising agencies and design studios to bring them back into the university. So I was already started with this network. And so going out and showing folios was a no-brainer. And then once I realized the folios needed help, that was also a no-brainer. So Adam, I think the best way to describe it is I realized I didn't want to shoot for other people, but my world was photography and being creative. So I made up a job, really. And I feel like my whole career has just been made up. I've seen opportunities or people have come to me with ideas and I've rolled with it. And that's really been my entire career, which is really exciting.
Does sound exciting. It sounds like you found something that helps a lot of people you can be passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a really good manager of time because I do. Some people go, my God, you do so much. And I do a lot, but I love it. I love bouncing out of bed every day and sort of not wondering, sort of going, right, what's today? Okay, today I'm spending all day with students doing this. Tomorrow I'm doing a folio. The next day I'm working on all these full-time jobs and interviewing people. The day after I'm doing something like this with you. You know, every day is really different. I also have an intern that works with me all the time, and I get a new intern each year from one of the universities, and that's fantastic as well. It's great. You know, I could never work in a 9-to-5 job where I do the same thing every day. So running your own business is really exciting and you make it what it is, you know, and if you're not happy with something, you change it, right? And if you don't want to work with that client, you get rid of them and it's good. But you've got to be an excellent manager of time to be able to manage all of that.
That's an excellent mindset to have. Now, Sally, you've been in the industry for a long time now. How would you say the creative industry has changed over the course of your career?
Look, I've got a whole section in my book called The Challenge of Change. It's changed enormously and it will always continue to change. I think change is really scary for a lot of people, but you either have to sink or swim with change. And I've always chosen to swim. Initially, you kind of go, whoa, this is changing. How do I deal with it? But I've dealt with it by surrounding myself with really clever people as well. So when things change on social media, I've got somebody in here that's half my age that I can go, what does this mean now? What do I have to do and how do I do this? So I surround myself with clever people. I ask a lot of questions and I keep abreast of the situation. You know, so you got to remember when I first started in photography, we were working in dark rooms with film. My first jobs were dark rooms and printing and shooting film. And so we went from that whole thing from film, getting out of dark rooms, going into digital photography where you could only shoot stills. I was involved with the first digital camera that ever came into the country. And my job was to get creatives to come in and have a look at it. And it was massive. It was as big as this room. It could only shoot stills. And we had creative directors and people sitting there going, yes, but you know, this will never take off because we really need to be shooting people and we need to go on aeroplanes and we need it to be much quicker. And the man that had bought it out, he was an Indian guy. He'd bought it out from India. And he said, I'm telling you, within the next few years, these cameras are going to get smaller and smaller. We're going to be able to hold them in our hands and shoot people. And we're all just there going, oh, is this guy for real? And that wasn't that long ago. That was in the late 90s. That was about 1996, 95, 96, around that time, which isn't a huge amount of time ago, but that change was phenomenal. And graphic designers and illustrators going through learning all about multimedia and learning the Adobe suite and having computers and not scribbling things on paper anymore. And so that sort of change has been massive, but it's about rolling with it, learning and understanding. Your whole creative career is about this massive learning curve. And it should always be that because we always want to be learning and we don't want to be stagnant. And what's funny and what's not funny, like what was funny in the 80s is not necessarily funny now, and how humor has changed and how advertising is approached and how budgets have changed. And so there's nothing that's unchanged ever. And, you know, you can sit and bitch about it and get upset about it, or you can roll with it, or you can make a change and go, no, I'm actually not going to do that. So, you know, you've got to have a very strong set of core values and do what you feel's right.
That sounds like a very strong thing to go through. What would you consider the most important lesson you've learned over your careers?
I think the most important lesson is to ask questions. I think to assume things, you can get into a lot of trouble, and asking questions, no matter how many you ask or on what topic it is, it helps to clarify exactly what the task is. And I think that would be my biggest thing. When I was younger, I was just a bit like a bull in a china shop, and I just slammed through stuff. But once I stopped and I listened and I asked questions and realized that I didn't know everything, that comes with maturity, I think that's been my biggest lesson, and a lesson that I like to talk to others about as well. Often it's the unspoken word that is the most powerful.
Yeah, it is important that people ask questions and question what is happening around them rather than just going with the flow. What would you consider a common myth of the industry is? Something people should consider and try and avoid if they can.
I think a common myth is that if you are really, really creative, that you're just going to be really successful. But there's so much more to it than just being really creative or just having a great portfolio. It's a bit of everything. It's about being a good person. It's about being humble. It's about being polite. It's about having a hunger. It's about what you can contribute to a conversation. It's certainly about your work and about your portfolio, but how you talk about it. It's also about how you understand the business of being a creative. So if you're starting your own business, it doesn't matter how creative you are or what skill sets or what equipment you have. If you don't actually understand the business of running a business and being a creative and how to quote and how to find a client and how to keep a client, it's going to be really tough for you to make a really good living. And so I think that's the lesson.
I think that is an important lesson that people should pay mind to. It would be very easy to get caught up in your own hype and believe that just because you're creative, everyone's going to assume the same.
Yeah. And do you know what? The phone doesn't ring if people don't know who you are. And people can walk around going, I am the most talented photographer or filmmaker or copywriter, and I'll just wait for the phone to ring. Well, actually, you've got to work really hard at that. And you have to be a good person, and you have to be a cultural fit, and you have to understand the business of it, and you have to know how to quote, and there's a lot to know and do. And I think that's the biggest myth. I think people go, gee, I'm really talented, or your partner or your parents or your children will say, you are so talented, why aren't you working more? And it's like, because you're not working at the business of being talented, you're just going on your talent, and it is one small portion of what makes you successful.
And that's where you're able to help people by making connections and get them connected with the people that need them.
Correct. Making connections, about talking to them about how to talk about their work, about how to present their work. It's everything, how to understand social media and all of the other things that you need to do, and understanding the business of it. We don't want you to be accountants or anything, of course, but if you do I have an accountant and a bookkeeper that I have weekly meetings with, so that I understand how the business is running and what I can spend and what I can't spend, and how everything's going. But I don't want to have to do it myself. But I'm in a position now that I can afford to have people to help me do that. But when you're starting out, you have to nut it out yourself. But you need to, at some point, have somebody that you can entrust with the business to teach you how to run a business as well. And often, I believe that if you are going to start your own business at any stage, you do need to work for other people for a period of time. I think 5 years is a really good amount of time to work for other companies and see how they run, how they work, how they quote, how they keep clients. And in some instances, it's like, well, you're sitting there as an employee going, well, when I have my own business, I'm never going to do it like that, or I'm never going to treat the employees like that, or that's exactly how I'm going to run my business. And that's a great idea. So you take the good and the bad of all of the jobs that you have in that period of time, and then you start your own business. I think you need to be working for someone else for a period of time to really understand that.
All right. Here's something that I'm curious about. What is the strangest connection people have asked you to make?
The strangest connection. I get asked for all sorts of things. Recently, I had a university ring me up who said, look, you're probably not going to be able to help me, but we're looking for a research assistant it was an area within mental health. And that was pretty kind of weird, because it's not really the area that I'm in. However, bizarrely, a photographer friend of mine has a wife who was looking for a job. And I knew that she was sort of I didn't really know what she was doing. Anyway, as it turns out, I rang her and we had a chat, and she goes, that's exactly the area that I would love to work in. And I've done this, this, and this. So I got a CV from her and I sent it through to the university, to the person that I was dealing with. And the weirdest thing was, apart from the fact she was the perfect fit for the job, he was a great friend of some of her relatives. And so he actually knew her, but not one-on-one, but he knew her, and it was just like, really? And so that was a very thin string of connection, but it all ended up that she got the job. She loves the job. He knew her family. The husband, who was my friend, who was the photographer, kind of went, wow, that went really well. And it was just so much of that is the right time at the right place. And he and I had been having a conversation about his wife, and he just said, look, she's not unhappy where she is, but she is looking for a bit of work. And I thought, oh, well, that'll never happen because I'll never find anything for it. And the very next week this came up. So that's something that's recently happened. But I find those connections with people a lot because I'm interested in people. I'm obviously in this interview, I'm talking a lot, but I do listen a lot, and I'm interested, and I take everything in. And then sometimes a job will come up and I'll think, now, hang on a minute, I do know that. I do know somebody, and I might need a few minutes to think about it, and bang, there it is. And the connection might be through, going to the vet and talking to somebody in the waiting room or, whatever it might be.
Sounds like you run into a lot of coincidences and people that are already connected.
Huge amounts. I think Melbourne is, I think Australia, I think the world is actually a really small space. And the more you talk to people and the more you find out about them, the more you're connected. Like that happens to me all the time, all the time.
What advice would you have for people trying to get into the industry?
Do your research on the industry and where you're wanting to fit within it. Be prepared, have a great CV, have a great website and or portfolio. Don't always wait for jobs to be advertised. I think that's a really important thing to think about as well. I think once you do that, you're all applying for the same jobs. But if there's an organisation or a company that you've admired or that you like or you've been following on social media, get in touch with them, give them a phone call, send them an email, say, look, I'm recently graduated, I'm about to graduate, I love what you do. Is there any chance I could come down and have a chat to you? Now, whilst they might not have a job going at that point in time, they might have one that comes up in a few weeks, or they might know another company like them that's looking for someone. But it's all part of building your network. If there's any industry networking nights or events that are occurring, go to them. Don't think you're too cool for it. Go meet people, get business cards, shake hands, talk to people. What's it like in your agency? I know that some of these people, this is where they meet at these networking evenings. They meet future employees, or there's one organisation that's not just here, but it's all around the world. And sometimes they'll say, well, look, if you're wanting to go to London, let's have a conversation. I can introduce you to some people. So that's what it's all about. It's about having a hunger, being proactive, being well prepared, and just getting out there and having fun and letting people know who you are. Be yourself, be natural. Don't try and be something that you're not. Wear the kind of clothes that you feel comfortable in. And if you've got any quirky things that you love to do, just do it. You've got to be that person, because you can't go for an interview pretending to be somebody else and get a job and then all of a sudden turn up as a different person. And it's equally as important for you to be looking at the organisations that you want to be going into, because you want to be happy as well. It's not just about them picking you. You need to pick them as well.
And what would you say would be one thing people should avoid doing when they are trying to make connections like that?
The thing that I think you need to avoid is stalking people. So if you've connected with somebody and then you've rung them and then you've emailed them and they've spoken to them and then you email them and then connect with them again on social media and then you ring them, it can just get a little bit too much. Like, actually understand that there's limits. If somebody says, I'll call you back in October, you need to wait till October. Don't ring them in August and September, and don't cheese them off, really. That's probably the best bit of advice. Other things to avoid would be avoid being lazy and avoid not having good manners. Just avoid all of that. Just be a good person, connect with people, and other things to avoid. I think that's probably the biggest thing, the stalking thing, that can just be really annoying.
Good advice to keep in mind. So in today's job market, do you think it's more important to be a specialist or a generalist?
I think that's a really good question. And I really believe that it's quite specific to what industry you're in. If you are a generalist, which I think is absolutely okay, a lot of the colleges and the universities, you are coming out with multiple skills, and it is absolutely okay, but you need to know what your strengths are, and you also need to know how to talk about them well. There's no point in going, oh, I do a bit of design, I do a bit of social media, I also do copywriting, I love video, and I did a photography minor, and I can do all of this sort of stuff. And because an employer will kind of go, well, what do you want to do? So you'd be better off going, Like I studied a course or I have multiple skills and I am quite a generalist, but my real passion is photography. But what I love about photography is this. But in addition to that, I can also do video and I've written a couple of scripts. So that's sort of something that I can do on the side if that could be beneficial to you, because I've noticed on your website that you do a bit of this. So it's about how you talk about yourself if you are a generalist, because if not, you can be very confusing. You can be confused and you can confuse others. And what you don't want is for you to walk out of the room and the people to go, God, she was a really lovely person. I don't really know what she wants to do. You want them to be saying, wasn't she a lovely person? She had great energy and her photography was beautiful, but it's really good to know that she can also do video and writing, isn't it? Or she can jump on the tools and be a designer. So that's the message. I work a lot with people, but not just young people, people that are well into their career who have gone back and retrained or learnt new skills. They kind of just keep adding them on to their skill sets. And then they get to a point where they actually don't know how to talk about themselves and they're not getting jobs because employers are confused about what it is that they want to do. So I do think being a generalist is great, but you do need to know how to talk about it. Being a specialist in certain fields can also be great, like architectural photography or food photography. They demand a specialist to work with them in certain areas of maybe special effects or, I think every job you look at, one looks at individually. So there is advantages and disadvantages to both. But in general, having multiple skill sets is great, but talk about them well.
So do you have any suggestions for how people should specialize their portfolios?
I've got a lot of ideas, Adam. But again, every single person that I see, I make their portfolio completely unique and individual to them. So that's the advice. When you're putting a folio together, it has got to be about you, about how you see things, about your personality, about what it is that you want to be doing. Don't just chuck in something because you think, oh, I did that at uni and it's probably good to put it in there. I really didn't enjoy it, but I should put it in there to show that I can do something different. If you didn't enjoy doing it, don't put it in there. Your folio is sort of your open book to this is who I am and this is what I love to do. And that's why you're going into this industry. You're not going into an industry to do things that you don't want to do or that you don't love. Of course, in any job that you have, there are going to be elements of things that you don't want to do. But if you go in there going, I do animation as part of what I do because I've got it in my folio and really you don't enjoy doing animation, you might get stuck into doing lots and lots of animation. But if it's just something that you've chatted about or it's on your CV and you've got a small amount in your folio and you could say to them, I really enjoyed doing this sort of animation because it was quite uncomplicated, but in general, animation's not my thing, then that's a better way to talk about it. So they know that you could do it as a part of your job, but they're not going to give you lots of it. Well, you hope not.
Very good advice. Looking at your online presence, you've made use of multiple forms of social media. Which do you think has been the most effective?
I'm not sure which I think has been the most effective, I'll be honest. I think that what I believe in is that you have to be a little bit everywhere all the time. So a little bit, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. I have quite a lot of, not pulling power, but response to LinkedIn and Instagram. Facebook, not so much, but I think Facebook is also really chatty and friendly and fun, and people are a little bit curious about that. So I think it's still quite important and it's sort of a bit more relaxed. But social media, EDMs, I find are really great, but there's nothing like this. There's nothing like a one-on-one conversation, whether it's on Zoom or in person or meeting people and getting to chat to people. So my response would be it's a little bit of everything all the time. It's not just blasting one form. It's sort of hitting them at different times over the month, So it's always like I'm on LinkedIn. Oh, there's Sally Brownbill. I'm on Facebook. There she is again. Oh, Instagram. There she is again. Oh, I've got an email from her, But you plan it out. Well, I plan it out so that people aren't getting 5 things from me a day, but that I'm always in the forefront of people's minds. All my creatives are.
Are there any tools or shortcuts you think people should know about?
I think shortcuts with social media, we have a pre-posting, is it an app? I'm not sure if it's called an app, where we pre-post what we're going to do. So we actually have a calendar and we can work out, right, an EDM will go out on the Tuesday and the story and that will go out on the following Thursday on LinkedIn and then the following Wednesday afternoon on Instagram. And so I think that's certainly a great shortcut that we've been doing for a very long time now, which saves a lot of time, but it also manages your social media really well. So you're not every day going, oh my God, I haven't posted something, or post 5 things today and nothing for a fortnight. Another one could be get a really good accounting system. So I'm with Xero, and I think that if you're running your own business is really good. There's MyOb, there's all sorts of ones around to see what would suit you, but make sure that all of your invoicing or your tax accounts, those sorts of things are great. And so with what I do is every invoice that I get, I photograph it and I email it into the system, and that's it. So I don't have bags and bags or boxes and boxes of invoices like we used to have. Those sorts of things, again, about the business of being creative. Now, that's obviously if you're running your own business, but if you're not running your own business and you're working for someone else, have a good accountant that you can work with as well. I think that's really important.
Very good advice. Thank you for that. If you could be doing any other job in the world, what would it be?
Before I studied photography, for a short period at the end of high school and before photography, I worked in television in a casting department at Crawford Productions. I'd done work experience there and then went back and worked. I have always had a passion for television. I love everything about it, casting, behind the scenes, production. And then I studied photography because everyone there said, you've got to be a photographer, look at your work. And so I did. But of course, when I went to England, I worked in television again. I ended up working in television in Bristol. I worked in London. So the answer to the question is, if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably love to work in television.
What type of shows did you work on? Is it anything I might have seen?
Oh, The Bill on Thames TV, and Rolf Harris had a TV show called Rolf's Cartoon Club. So they're the two I worked on, and I didn't do anything of any huge significance at either of them. I answered fan mail, I was on reception, I was a runner, I was just a temporary in both of those places that they put me into by coincidence. But I just loved the time that I was there, and I just loved watching it all unfold and how it worked. I also, as a young photographer in Melbourne, worked on TV sets and photographed stills. Yeah, I do love that whole atmosphere. And in fact, yesterday at RMIT, I was interviewed in their TV studios and I felt very at home there. I do love it. And I love being in front of a camera and behind a camera. That's probably what I'd end up doing if I wasn't doing this. And who knows, maybe I will.
Sounds like you've gotten to have a lot of fun experiences hopping around different parts of the industry. You'd say that people should just embrace the different jobs they do because it might help them someday, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I think, the great thing about the creative industry is that you can move around and you can diversify and you can think you're going down this road and then an opportunity comes up over here and you go, well, hang on, I didn't see that happening. I might go over here for a while and then I'm going to come back to here, or I might just keep on going on that trajectory. So the creative industry is about that. It's about making opportunities. It's about taking up opportunities as well. It's about talking to people and collaboration. And as I said to you, some time back in this interview, that I have always listened to people and taken up opportunities and run with it. Because if you have a very literal, linear approach to your career, I think it would end up being quite dull. I think it's really nice to have all of these tangents and off you go, but it has to be controlled. It has to be time managed. You ultimately need to be making money from it. So talking to people about, is this a good idea or not, or having a very strong gut is really important. I go very much with my gut and my feeling, and it's like, I'm not sure, then I don't do it. But if it's like, well, it could be good, I'm not really sure, I really like that person, or it sounds like a great idea, let's give it a go. Most things that I've done in my career have worked out really, really well. Everybody that I have worked with has been fantastic. And along the way, there's a few dickheads that slip in and out and you kind of go, whoa, that was a dickhead. But that's okay because, life is full of different people and you can't get on with everybody. So running your own business, you choose who you want to work with as well. And that's a great thing too.
Very good to hear. Sure, it'll be great advice for everyone. Now, what is something you wish I had asked today?
What do I wish you'd asked me today? Do I love the industry? I think that's a good question. Do you love it? And I'm going to say, I do love the creative industry. I get very frustrated by it. I think the last few years has been incredibly tough. I think coming out of COVID has been harder for employees than it has been when they went into COVID. People are now a little bit shell-shocked. Many of them are suffering from mental health issues. Many of them are wanting to work from home a lot more than going into agency or into studio. And companies have had to rethink how they work. That's been really tough. A lot of young people are quite unsure of where they want to be. Right now, at the moment, I feel like everybody's in the Greek islands or Bali, and that's okay. But I do love the industry. I think to be in the industry, you have to love it. There are elements that really cheese me off, but that's really normal. But I do love it. I do bounce out of bed every day. I am really fortunate to be like that, but I make it happen. So if I'm not happy with something, I change it. And I do love helping other people. I get great joy in seeing other people really happy in their work as well and making them the best version of themselves. I think that's a really important part to the Brownbill Effect. And my mission statement for the Brownbill Effect is a one-stop shop where creatives, photographers, business and industry influencers can connect. It sets you on your creative path and inspires your direction. It motivates the actions that encourage and energize you while increasing confidence in yourself and in the future. And I love being able to do that and giving people that confidence. So there you go. That's a question I would have liked to have just been able to let you know, which I've now done. It's a great industry, but you make it your own. It can be really tough, but life can be really tough, and you have to take the downside with the upside. And there's some people that say to me sometimes, gosh, you take that really personally. And I do take things really personally. I get over it pretty quickly, but I do because I really care. And I don't just do things flippantly. I think long and hard about who's the right fit for the job. And, that makes me who I am, and it makes people want to work with me.
Thank you. I wish I had asked that question now.
There it is.
Now, you've mentioned you've got a new book. Would you be able to tell us about that?
How to develop your career as a photographer. It can be bought online. It's $20 as an online copy that you can buy as an ebook from my website, or the printed version here is $40. Whilst I wrote it for photographers, I've had such great feedback right across the board from graphic designers, jewelry makers, interior designers, special effects students, all sorts of people who have found it to be really helpful. So it's not about how to take a photograph. It's about everything that we've talked about today. It's about being motivated. It's about inspiration. It's about how to deal with change. It's about the nuts and bolts of running a business. So it can be actually for the entire creative industry. And I'm really proud that I wrote that. I dedicated it to Rick, who passed away during COVID. And if anybody wants to know any more about it, you can go to my website and check it out, or give me a call. For $20, it's the best $20 you're ever going to spend if you do it as an ebook, or $40 for a hard copy.
So everyone go out and try and get it when you can. Thank you for your time today. Where can people find you online?
So you can go to thebrownbilleffect.com. So that's the website, my email address, my mobile number, everything's on there. All of the creative directories, the assistant directory, how I help with consultations and the kind of consultations. There's also great sections in there, Adam, where I've had conversations over many years with famous or infamous people within the creative industry, and they come from all areas, from education, from really well-known creative directors, graphic designers, filmmakers, photographers, and that's at the top in the resources bar. And it's a great area to have a look at, because you can really have a look into other people's lives that are in the industry and what they've got out of it as well. I think it's also really good to be inspired by some of these extraordinary people. There's also an area under resources called Sally's Insights, which is talking to you about interview techniques, or how to get a job, or what not to do, and all sorts of things in between. So that's a really good read. You can also sign up to my newsletter. And I've also done a series of podcasts, and I've written an ebook as well. So there's actually a lot on the website for people to look at. And I'd love to chat to anyone that's interested in having a career in the creative industry and how I might be able to help them.
A lot of good advice from a very talented woman who has had a lot of success in the industry, helping a lot of people.
And at the very end, I'd love you to meet my friend here. Come on, quick, who's been trying to get up the whole time. So this is Lainey, and anyone that works with gets to know her very well, okay? And she's on the website too.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today, Sally.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I hope everyone got something out of our interview. I think you did a great job, Adam.
Thank you. You provided much insight, and it was a very helpful experience. Thank you for taking the time today.
Pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Sally. Thank you for watching. More information on Sally Brownbill can be found at her website, thebrownbilleffect.com.